Hello everybody and welcome to this Norton College History video blog, Unit 2, Life in Germany. So here follows some top tips and general good advice about how to tackle the Unit 2, Life in Germany exam. Firstly, you need to follow the instructions for the exam. The exam is divided up into two sections, Section A and Section B. In Section A, you must answer question 1, question 2, then you've got a choice between answering question 3 or question 4. In Section B, you answer question 5A and 5B or question 6A and 6B. The exam is out of 54 marks and you have 1 hour and 15 minutes for the Unit 2 Life in Germany exam. So, just like with the other exams that you are doing on crime, punishment and protest, you want to make sure that you read the questions properly. Use the BUSY acronym to help you to do this, particularly on the longer essay questions. The B stands for boxing command words, such as do you agree with the view or why was Hitler able to, things like that. The U stands for underlining keywords, phrases and dates, making sure you're paying special attention to the date parameters of the question. For the longer essay questions, the 16 mark question and the 12 mark essay question, you want to scribble a quick plan. Very, very brief, but just so that you know what you're going to write about in each paragraph. And paragraphs you must use. That's really, really important to organise your essay writing really, really well. And will help you with those spelling, punctuation and grammar marks for the 16 mark question. Finally, when you've done all that, you're ready to go and good luck. So let's have a look at how to tackle the questions on the Unit 2 Life in Germany exam. Question 1 is worth 4 marks and you should spend 6 minutes on this question. The question simply requires you to make one supported inference. An inference is what you can work out from a particular source, and you must support your inference by either quoting from the source or, if it's a picture source, by referring to something specific in the actual picture or photograph. So you must remember to make one supported inference and quote from the source. Some useful phrases are using phrases like I can infer that, and to show that you're supporting your inference you could use a phrase like I can tell this because it says in source A that. Making sure that any quotes that you include should be like baby crocodiles, short and snappy. Remember, this question is only worth 4 marks and you are not required to use any own knowledge at all. Try and keep this question brief and get on to the next question as soon as you can. Don't be fazed by there being lots of space in the exam booklet. It's fine just to write 3 or 4 lines for this question and then move on. So here's an example question 1 from the Germany course. The question is normally always phrased, what can you learn from source A, and then about something. So remember, for this question you must make your supported inference. Question 2 is worth 9 marks and you're going to spend around about 13, maybe 14 minutes on this question. This question simply requires you to use your own knowledge, but you often need to explain also the importance of an event and also try and put it into the correct historical context, and that means thinking about what happened before an event or indeed what happened after an event. So you need to use detailed own knowledge, you need to evaluate significance, there's some useful phrases there as well, and you need to make sure that you are not just describing but that you're actually answering the question that you've been given properly, quoting the question in your answer, and really putting the event into the correct historical context. So here follows an example of this question. So it's always phrased like this. They always give you 2 boxes and you only need to write about one of the boxes. So they might give you 2 specific historical events or 2 key individuals, for example, and quite often you have to explain the importance of that group's work. So you might just want to pause this video now to read the example answer there, and note as you do read the example answer how much the answer actually focuses on why, in this case the SA or the brown shirts, why they were such an important factor for the success of the Nazi Party. So there's lots of historical evidence in there, but crucially, to get the highest marks, the importance of the essay is fully explained. So moving on to question 3 or 4, you have a choice here. 12-mark questions, essay questions. You'll have about 18 minutes on this question, so you want to make sure that you are backing up your points with lots of evidence and explanation using the P paragraphs, and that you are really writing in quite a lot of detail because it is worth 12 marks. You'll be given some bullet points to guide you, but just make sure that you don't rely on them too much. You need to include your own knowledge, which is outside the bullet points. And you also need to have a conclusion. So, for example, if you had a question such as, why did Germans dislike the Treaty of Versailles? You need to maybe give 3 or 4 factors grouped into separate paragraphs about why they disliked the treaty, and then finish with a conclusion where you say which factor is the most important. Try and use phrases that really help you explain and evaluate. Phrases like "this meant that," and also for your literacy skills, make sure you're organising your work into clear paragraphs. So here is an example of question 3 or question 4. Why was the Weimar Republic unpopular in the years 1919 to 1923? For a why question like this, you probably want to have 3 or 4 different factors, but backed up with lots of evidence. And similarly, for the question about why the Weimar Republic was able to survive, 3 or 4 really well explained factors. Now, it's really interesting here, you get the bullet points, but you don't only need to write about the bullet points. For example, if you're looking at the question, why was the Weimar Republic unpopular in the years 1919 to 1923, there's a whole range of other factors that you could write about. For example, the fact that they signed the armistice in November 1918 and were regarded as November criminals, and the stab in the back myth would be another really good factor to write about why the Weimar Republic was unpopular. Similarly, why the Weimar Republic was able to survive in the years 1924 to 1929, although it gives you the 2 bullet points of a new currency and loans from the USA, clearly the role of the foreign minister, Gustav Stresemann, would be another really important factor to write about. So that's question 3 or 4. They're worth 12 marks. So then that moves you on to section B. Now, you have a choice of doing question 5 or question 6. Now, question 5 and 6 have 2 parts to them. So there's a 5A and a 5B, and a 6A and a 6B. So if you do 5A, you have to do 5B. If you do 6A, you have to do 6B. Firstly, let's have a look at the type A question of 5A or 6A, depending on which one that you do. These are often described questions, so these are questions that simply testing your knowledge, but you want to try and aim to give at least 3 detailed pieces of evidence to support your answer. So there's a couple of example questions that have been. For example, describe the ways in which the Nazi Party was able to win support from different groups in Germany in the years 29 to 32. You'd want to give 3 different examples there, and that's the kind of question where it's really crucial to look out for date parameters. If it gives you the dates 1929 to 1932, you won't get any credit for writing about anything in 1928 or any credit for writing about anything from 1933, and that's where your busy acronym is really important, so that you're underlining the key phrases in the questions. Similarly, the other question, described the role played by women in the Nazi state in the years 1933 to 1945. Again, you'd need to be looking for about 3 different examples, so you're going into a good amount of detail. So if you question 5A, then you'll have to do 5B. If you've chosen 6A, then you'll have to do question 6B. A lot of students choose the 16-mark question first, and then they do the part A of that question. So if they like the question 6B, then they'll have to do the question 6A. So the big 16-mark question, which you'll spend about 24-25 minutes on, 5B or 6B, normally requires you to evaluate, to weigh up an interpretation or explain why something happened using your detailed own knowledge. Now, it's really important on these types of questions that you have a balanced answer, so that you show that you're looking at both sides of the argument. So in terms of exam requirements for this question, you need to use detailed own knowledge to answer the question. You need to have a conclusion at the end where you really give your overall opinion and you explain your opinion. Don't sit on the fence and say that you can't decide what your opinion is. You need to really justify your opinion. So there's some useful phrases there that you could use, and make sure that you're using clear paragraphs. Use the BUSY acronym to remind yourself to scribble a quick plan. Try to write academically as well to try and pick up as many SPAG marks as you can. That stands for spelling, punctuation and grammar. If you have time, make sure you scope your work so that you are going to correct some of those literacy errors should you have them. So these are some of the question stems for 16 markers. Sometimes you can get an in what way is question, or a why did something happen, or do you agree with the view. But make sure you're using the BUSY acronym to really read the question carefully. Pause this if you want to look at this advice in more detail to think about the types of questions you might. So here's an example of a 16-mark question. This one is a why question. Why was Hitler able to gain complete power in governing Germany in the years 1933 to 34? A classic question, getting you to focus on the change in Germany from a democracy to a dictatorship between January 1933 and August 1934. And again, you have your bullet points here, such as the Reichstag fire or the death of President Hindenburg. But if you've revised carefully, you'll know there's a whole host of other factors you could write about here, such as the enabling law, for example, of March 1933. You could write about the Night of the Long Knives in June 1934, when the SS, the black shirts, were used to get rid of the SA leadership, people like Ernst Röhm. So it's really important that you don't just use the bullet points, but use them as a prompt just to spark off those memories when you're in the exam. So for this question, a why question, you'd want about 4 different factors, and then you're going to finish with a conclusion where you explain your opinion. So if I was doing this question, I have a paragraph on the Reichstag fire, a paragraph on the enabling law, possibly a paragraph about banning political parties, a paragraph definitely on Night of the Long Knives, and then a paragraph about the death of President Hindenburg and how Hitler used that to become the Führer, and then he got the army to take an oath of allegiance towards him. So that's how you do the Germany exam. A few final tips. There's another example of a 16-mark question from the past. Final tips. So think about reflection. You need to revise in detail for this exam. You need to know it extremely well. So make sure you're doing all those tasks in the revision guide. You come to the revision session at half term. Read the questions carefully using BUSY. For the essay questions, focus on P, your point, evidence and explanation. And the timing is key. You must make sure you've got enough time to answer all the questions. So to find out how long to spend on each question, you need to times the number of marks by 1.5. So the 4-mark question, you're going to spend 6 minutes on that. The 9-mark question's about 13 minutes. The 12-mark question's about 18 minutes. And the 16-mark question, you're probably going to spend about 24, maybe 25 minutes on that question. So I hope you found that useful and that you feel fully prepared now for the Germany exam. You need to keep revising, you need to keep working hard. You're going to climb that mountain. You know you can do it if you keep working hard and you put in the effort. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching this, and just the very best of luck for the examination. I know you can do it. We're all believing you here in the history department. Good luck.